calling this meeting to order. If everyone could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's business meeting. We are returning from executive session where we heard from district leadership and our council regarding SAW negotiations, and we also received an update on succession planning in the district. At this point, can I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda, to adopt tonight's agenda rather? First is Stacy, second is Deanna. All in favor? It is 7 in favor. Thank you. And now we're going to move into Board of Education comments, and I'm going to start with Deanna.
All right. I found this article in our newsletter on VOE service is a lot like attending high school. I thought that was really cool, kind of relatable, right? I'd probably turn to Tom and Petra to see if they could relate to this, but I think we all can, right? So it talks about, for the audience, it talks about a new board member coming through for their first year of board service, kind of be like the freshmen in high school, and what they thought they could do, what they thought they were going to do when they got to the board, and what they found out quickly that they couldn't do. So I thought it was a very interesting article because we can all relate to it, but it also reminds us of our roles as board members and our confines and what we're here to do. So I just found this very interesting because I know it's very relatable to all of us. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. Gusha?
I just wanted to acknowledge our school counselors. February 5th through 9th is National School Counseling Week. I want to acknowledge our great counselors and all the work they do for our kids in our district.
Thank you. I think you just took
Jason's. Now I'm in trouble.
I'm seniority.
I'm in trouble. I'm married.
That's your problem. That's a you problem.
This is true.
Thank you, Gusha. Tom?
I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
Okay, Jackson.
So not a few weeks ago, I think it was last Monday actually.
Is the mic on?
It is.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
A few weeks ago, a group of students in Rho Kappa, which is the Honor Society for Social Studies, History, and Senate, had the opportunity to go to the Capitol for lobbying for free lunches. Unfortunately, that was canceled because of our 2-hour delay. The first one of the year, of course, but it's okay. Mother Nature can hate all she wants. But we're hoping to reschedule that. So we really want to be there as the student voice in that campaign because it really is important. And it's also really important for the congressmen and women to see how important it is for us students to get free lunches, not only in the district but statewide. So that was super exciting. I was grateful to be one of the people who was attending. So it was super exciting, still is super exciting. Hopefully we can reschedule it. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Okay, look forward to hearing more. Thank you. Petra?
Yeah, just a quick comment. The nights that we approved tenure is one of my favorite. So I'm looking forward to approving the tenure. I think I'm jumping the gun, but two tenure candidates tonight. So I'm excited about that. Thank you.
Stacy?
Nothing this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jason.
I will second the recognition of our school counselors. They do tremendous work along with all of our staff, but they are a critical role in our schools and in many ways glue that holds a lot of our functions together. So kudos to all of them.
Thank you. With tonight's long agenda, I am going to promise that I won't have a lot to say. I did want to give a shout out for Mrs. Carmen sent out an invite to include the board on the unified basketball team for a district office. I think that's pretty exciting, so looking forward to that. And thank you, Mrs. Carmen, for including us this year. I think it's going to be a change. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch Jason and Tom get out there.
Funny.
And Petra too.
Oh, Petra's going to be on the court?
I just haven't done it.
elbows.
Oh,
Yet.
all right.
I'll be cheering you
Yeah,
on.
I'm going to be cheering on
Let's go.
sidelines. So it's like,
Let's do
Anyway.
it.
I played.
Nice.
I looked like
Good.
that. I hated it.
Good.
But
Right. I need some
It's
lessons.
just been a few years.
I did play high school, but I don't think you want to know for it. All right, that's it for board comments. At this point, I'm going to invite our students up to speak. I see that Glennis is here. But before she comes up, do we have anyone from the audience that is planning to make a public comment? Because if we do, I have a statement to read. I don't see anyone getting up, so I'm going to invite Glennis up.
Hello.
Yes.
So we started preparing for our dodgeball tournament, which is going to be on March 1st this year, and the Senate members invite all board members to make a team and join us.
Well, basketball is our limit tonight this year.
I don't know.
So March 1st is the day of the game? What time is it?
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
I do,
Yeah.
but just check it.
This is dodgeball,
Dodgeball.
yes.
I've been advised, I think, by our insurance and council
Yeah.
folks.
The other way.
So it's 6 to 9
Us
here at high
injuring
school.
students is frowned upon.
Keep the dodge away.
We are also restarting the Festival of the Arts, aka Day of the Arts, which is planned for April 26th. And to add a little bit of spice, we also have our student-led band playing at that event too.
Glennis, is that gonna be here?
Yes, it's gonna be here.
Very exciting.
Thanks.
Is that including like elementary school kids or is it?
I think just high school students and their artwork, plus like some musical things going on here and there, but yeah.
Thanks.
But
you.
elementary kids are more than welcome to attend.
To walk around and
Yeah.
everything. Excellent, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the comment period, and we'll move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Robinson?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hoffman. So we have several presentations that we want to walk through tonight. The first one will be our financial report, so I'm going to have Mrs. Chase, ask Mrs. Chase to come forward. There are several links on this document. Our intent wasn't necessarily to walk through every single sequence of it. The documents were shared with the board. Appreciate some feedback, some questions the board members had. Hopefully you had a chance to look at some of the responses that I shared out earlier today to some of those questions. So just for context, so we've been doing, I guess, for 18 years now, as a part of our budget development process, we do a mid-year forecast. And I want to emphasize, it's not a budget. Just trying to look out, say, if we take certain assumptions, what does the end of the year look like? So we have some sense of truly, are we on pace to do all the things we do? And what capacity, what potential opportunities, probably better, to take advantage of certain capacity to either pay things forward, to really be strategic in terms of how we use resource from one year to the next year to bridge the financial situations, and certainly try to avoid any fiscal challenges moving forward. And the second component of that is we use that mid-year document as a baseline to do a 3-year forecast. And again, 3-year forecast is not a budget. It's just basically saying, if we were to assume these things and roll them out for 3 years, what does that look like? So it kind of gives us, I kind of like, when my kids were little, everybody wanted, my wife is wonderful, she would give every kid a chance to tell exactly what they wanted to do for spring break. So one kid wanted to go to Disney World, one kid wanted to go to Disneyland, another kid wanted to go to this, and they're like, so Dad, we have to do all these things. And I said, okay, we can, but we have 4 days. This is where we drove everywhere. So it was actually 6, but driving day and a driving day. And we can, but we have 4 days. And so we can do a day of this. We can't do Disneyland, that's the whole day. Or we could do a day of this, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, we can't do all these things. So let's come back to a compromise. I said it because when we look at the 3-year forecast, we kind of look at it and say, what does the future kind of look like for us? If it's out of bounds, they're like, whoa, we got a lot of work we need to do right now. If it's within reason, then we say, okay, it's fine. We can massage the process over time. So I'll share that with you. So it's an internal piece, and it's also an external piece for the public to understand that when we think about the budget process, we think about it more than just the request that's coming in or the state aid that's coming in. We really think about it in a broad sense of how can we be both tactical and strategic. Looking at the current conditions, and then seeing based upon this, what does the future look like, and how can we influence the future as much as possible? So that's the basis for this process, and I call it a process because it's truly a process for us. And also then the third component of that is where, as a part of this, Kathy starts what I call combing through the budget, right? So in order to look at the projections, we start combing through the budget to say, okay, what's staffing that may not transpire in future years? And so we use that cleaner document. We have to start really then building the budget for the next year as a part of that combing through the budget process. So with that being said, Catherine, we're gonna do the report one is probably better.
Yeah, we can walk through that one. So everything that's on the narrative is shown in picture format, so chart format, in the graphs and the charts. So the good news this year is that, we are projected to expend about 99% of the budget. We're usually in that 96, 97%. We're at 99%. And partially that's because we are expecting to realize about 102% of our revenues. So that gives us a lot more leeway than we would otherwise have at the end of the year for surplus, so to speak. So the savings that we have seen in the budget are a result of a lot of things. In our categories, we show instructional salaries, the normal things like breakage from retirement, breakage from resignations, breakage from new hires, leaves of absence are always, you might be paying 2 people for the same position if they're on a paid leave, or you might be paying just a sub under an unpaid leave. So that results in a fair amount of adjusting, I'll say, with the budget. We do expect to overexpend in the sub cost this year, about $250,000, and that's based on trending and also looking at last year. And another reason that we do have about 1.4 million in savings is that we had 12.6 FTE positions recoded from the general fund to the federal fund. So we budgeted for them, but recognizing that many of these positions were eligible for federal financing, so to speak, we've recoded them there because we will repurpose the savings in the general fund for other things that are needed.
So Catherine, before you go on this point that I want to make sure that the board see, this is 98%.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much, so people see 1.4 and say, wow, that's a lot. But we expended 98% of what we budgeted for. That's pretty much hitting that bullseye right in the middle. And there's always those flex. I just want to keep in context, right? Because context is important.
Administrative budget, we're actually slightly over. And there's a number of reasons for that. We did have some, at least 1 paid leave of absence, but 2 leaves of absence in total. We had 6 new hires, 4 resignations, 1 retirement. So some breakage in there that led to just that slight overage. The non-instructional salaries, we expended 97.4%. Again, the same reasons as on the instructional side. We had breakage from retirements, resignations, new hires, 107 leaves of absence, and 1 FTE that was recoded to the federal grants.
Before Catherine move on, if you look back at this, and if you look back at instructional, when you look at the new hires, the leaves of absences, high numbers, when you look at non-instructional, so there's always a lot of moving parts. We literally have about 2,200 bodies, about 1,700 full-time equivalent. So again, context is important for people, right? We hire a lot of people to run the system that we're in, right? To make sure that we're effectively meeting the respective needs. And so with that comes a lot of moving parts. And sometimes some of these moving parts are challenged to hire and backfill in, but there's a lot of moving parts to this. And so we try to capitalize on those opportunities. So when we have position openings, we stop and ask the question, are we backfilling it the same way? Does it create a new opportunity, different opportunity? All those questions asked all the time because we want to, in the moment, take advantage of opportunities. So at the end of the year, we can look back at what we spent is one thing, but the impact of the expenditure is a bigger piece that we're trying to always keep our fingers on the pulse of.
I'm sorry I didn't ask this sooner.
Sure.
Sorry for this. We coded the federal grants, what's that?
Yeah, so back to the federal grant piece. So basically, we had all this COVID funds on the table, right, with a timeline clock ticking. must spend by a certain period. And it also came with certain eligibility requirements. You can spend the money for this type of purchase. So when we saw those opportunities within our general fund to use federal funds to cover those costs, it creates capacity within the general fund to do some other things within the general fund budget. And so that's just a recoding piece. So they're being accounted for under the federal funds. And also those that we recode under federal funds, there's an exit ramp strategy, right? So I think somebody asked the question, for instance, SRO is a perfect example of one. And yeah, we're going to cap SROs next year because SROs allocations were in this year's budget, and that allocation is going to carry over into next year's budget. For this year, though, the actual allocation wasn't expended for that, create some capacity for us to do some of the strategic pieces I mentioned before. That at the end of the year, we'll look at all the different budget codes, make all the transfers to kind of clean up the budget through the audit process. Because the auditors come in too. They come in and they look at it and they make sure that transfers are accurate and those kind of things. And so we have a relatively clean budget, clean it up, and then we use that capacity to address some of the three strategic areas that we focused before, paying down some debt, the transportation piece, things that we don't want to put in the budget next year if we don't have to put in the budget next year, because then we can use that capacity to do something else. So every budget year is building on the next budget year, and in the between is the federal funds. We're trying to leverage that because come September 24, all the federal funds are done, right? So how do we leverage those things? And we've been doing it for the past couple of years with those FTEs, and then bringing those positions back into the general fund budget as a part of our off-ramp exit strategy, however you want to look at it, from the federal funds.
Thank you, sorry.
No, it's a great question, because this is this piece that, in fact, we met today talking about federal funds. As we submit stuff to the state, how do we make sure we're maximizing technology funds with Ray and David today, and Cecily and Captain and I. So this is a big part of our conversation all the time. Maximizing these revenue sources so we can truly, we don't want to leave money on the table, off the table, however you want to look at it. And on the same note, we don't want to set ourselves up by committing to expense that we don't have a plan to carry over if it's something we want to carry over into the coming year.
And that's the great part about these, and I think the way you've used it here, this is stuff we need and we would have bought anyway with our own money. We were able to use somebody else's money for this year, right? And so just flat savings or straight savings. So
and leverage it to do some other strategic
Exactly.
things. Absolutely.
Moving on to benefits, we expended 95.8%. Again, our brokers did a great job for us in getting decent rates for us this year. Back in February of last year, we had requested what they expected our rate increases to be. On average, it was about 12%. Based on actual experience and some negotiating, we actually, on average, for the entire budget line, increased only 3.42%. So that certainly gave us a fair amount of savings there. The other
Let me just add a little color to that. An important part, health insurance is a little bit more challenging for us because health insurance changed January. So we straddle 2 different fiscal years, right? And so that's when we get the rates, we get a rate up till January of next year, right? And so then we have to extrapolate. So, okay, what does from January to June look like based upon projections that they're giving us to us right now? And so the tendency for, well, I'm thinking the tendency, the rates that the initial rate projections are typically higher. And the worst thing we can do is make the assumption that they're going to be lower and don't budget enough, and they come at the higher rate, right? Because then we are making cuts, a reduction in other areas. And so it becomes a piece that we try to massage not only with our brokers by looking at those kind of things. Then we look at different plan options to say, and we meet with our respective unions to say, here's some plan options that gives us quality benefits, but at a different cost exposure. Or at least the trajectory of the cost might be cheaper, might be the same initially, but instead of something that's projected to go up by 15% every year, something to go up by 5% every year. So because we spend about $30 million on health insurance, so that's a huge singular unit cost that we have to really unpack to make sure that we're trying to it's not about minimizing, it's not about reducing costs. We're not gonna reduce the cost. It's minimizing the increase of the cost. Does that make some sense? And so that's a
Yeah.
big unit for us to every year to unpack.
I wanted to add, because you had, this question was actually raised by one of the board members and you responded, but I think it's also beneficial to say here that with these savings, benefits were not sacrificed, that, there is a goal of ensuring that access, that stays the same. And so, that was one of the questions that came about, with this savings, does that mean benefits changed, were reduced, but they were not? So I just wanted to make sure that was shared.
And so Jason, you want to say something? Okay, good. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Sorry, Kathy.
That's okay. The other benefits kind of go along with savings and salaries, but we also did some recoding of those expenses too. Not a lot, but we did do some.
So before Kathy move off this one, because I want to highlight the benefit piece. So we talk about health insurance. The other big singular in the benefit category, health insurance, health, dental, drugs. I put in that one category, right? Then we have the pension costs. So the pension piece is the piece that we also have to watch, because those varies based upon the stock market, by the way, because the ERS or TRS, they're investing money, and so the implications for 23-24 is based upon, if you remember the stock market downturn, people want to call it crash. We had 09, and then we suffered through that, and we came back right after COVID. The market kind of dipped significant. All those things now have a ripple effect of catching up, where all those agencies are adjusting their rates because of, say for instance, TRS uses a 5-year rate sequence. So over the 5 years, what are the rates? So the good rates, some of the good rates are going off, and some of the bad rates are staying on. So the averages are, so we have to anticipate saying that, okay, for the next couple of years, we anticipate a rate increase in those things. And so for us to not then try to figure out how do we, quite frankly, to smooth that impact for us for future years, I think it's negligent on our part. That's the reason I'm saying that, because one of the things that we're thinking about, again, this is a forecast, that if we get to the end of the year, we have some funding capacity. One of the areas we want to look at, because we already know we're going to get the rates for next year, those rates are going to increase both for both pension houses. And so how do we try to again, buffer that over the years? And so I share that with the board, because that's why this document and this conversation becomes good. And I hope that the board and the public has some confidence that we're just not sitting around with a calculator adding up numbers, and if they're good, they're good. It's truly strategic to think about how we use resources to keep, again, leveraging those resources for future years.
Yeah, and this one's fun too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but school districts, municipalities are like the last line of defense for the retirement systems, right? If it doesn't perform and the market's not performing and there's a gap, we pay. The state doesn't pay.
Correct.
It goes back down, and that's what happened with the fiscal crisis, right? It's a huge, giant increase unexpectedly.
Yeah. So again, it's important.
So it's good to have something in our pocket in case that happens.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, thanks, appreciate it. That's all, Catherine.
So equipment, we expect to fully expend. We always have way more needs than we actually can fund, so that should be fully expended by the end of the year. Contractual services, we expect about 95,000 in savings. Couple of savings, we talked about SROs, that's partially because we recoded to federal funds. Utilities, hopefully the trend stays, that we're gonna have some savings there, 169,000. We do expect, because we had some flexibility in the budget, that we will overexpend in the contractual costs for transportation, because transportation is interested in moving to the cloud-based version of VersaTrans. It will allow them to eliminate a couple of programs, software programs that we currently use, and better take advantage of what VersaTrans has to offer. But also it will allow us to implement that parent app that will give parents more information on where buses are.
I just was writing that.
Yes.
I just was writing that, going to ask that.
Yes.
Right, cool. Good.
Yes, so we're excited about that. It was actually requested in the budget for next year, but because we do have the flexibility this year, we're going to push that forward this year.
So, good, just add a little color to this. And again, I say that because every year, I get somebody who's gonna put something on a Facebook post or something. And this year's a perfect example of weather. And I'm sure if you pay your bills at home, you saw your utility bill, all of a sudden, this time of year, they always do that chart, what you paid last year to this year. And because the weather's been so mild, it's night and day. It's a fraction of what you pay in a bad weather situation, right? But as a system, when we sit here in February and March, planning a budget, we have no idea what the weather's gonna be like a year later, right? So we have to, quite frankly with you, make that assumption of, we start looking at trends and say if the trend is, so if you look at a trend, right, you have a high and low, we have a tendency, particular things that they're on the higher side, because the worst thing you have is the worst weather from ever that we have to then have every utilities go through the roof, and we're not prepared for it. So that's a flexibility piece. It's not a huge dollar flexibility, but we build that flexibility in for some of those uncertainties that we cannot predict other than the trend line. So we look at the trend lines, we say the trends over the last 3 or 4 years, because 1 year doesn't make a trend, right? So we look at the 2 or 4 years, so what's the trend line for the utility costs? And now we find that after COVID, we're back into 3 solid full years of everybody being in school. So that trend line is kind of, it's reestablished again, right? So that's where some of these kind of things come in at, and we try to then look at it and say, well, do we have those opportunities? And so Kathy used the word overexpended. We're going to do budget transfers to offset those things. So it's not like we're going to have end of budget year with a negative in any code. At the end of when we clean up the budget, we do transfers to offset those,
It's all zero
those
sum,
expenditures.
right?
Everything zeroes out, exactly. So again, just want to make sure that we, right now, we just have to use that terminology because we know that those are areas at some point we're going to have to, in May, when with our auditors, everything, we clean up budget transfers and have a clean budget for the final independent audit.
Right. I did want to also point out, because it has been rather significant this year compared to prior years, that our special ed out-of-district tuitions and related services are combined over 500,000 more than what we budgeted. So those costs are really skyrocketing these days. And again, last year we were budgeting in February, and even this last year, those costs by the end of the year had skyrocketed. So I just wanted to point that out because thank God we have some capacity because we did use it to offset some of those big increases.
What's the driver there? Is it
So
like quantity or is it rating?
It's a lot of it's cost increase of those programs. Because we don't have relatively a lot of kids that go outside placement. In fact, over the past several years, there's been an opposite trend. People trying to bring programs back in-house as much as we can. So a lot of it is program cost, and some of these programs are really high-end, really residential programs, high-end cost a lot of money for those programs. And so back to great point Kathy made. So we go through the budget process in February, March, and I'm looking at Anna back there, CSC. They do a lot of CSC in April, so this processes don't necessarily align, but yet we have to anticipate what they might be seeing here, and so we budget with that kind of anticipation piece. And so that's why, again, looking at trends from years kind of makes some sense. So are we seeing a trend? And again, if we have a blip in 1 year, we can't say it's a trend. It might be a blip in 1 year, but once that blip is, we're going to say how long will those kids stay in that program? For how many years, and now we put that into the budget sequence, right? So we have the budget based upon those kind of things. So certain areas are a little bit more straightforward to follow the trend lines. Certain areas not as much, but at the same note, we have to build a capacity to address those programs and or find the capacity within the budget to address those programs.
So what do you build on then for what you're going to put in the
We
budget for
build
next
on
year? Like
current
what
numbers.
percentage?
No, we look at programs.
Just
We look at
current
programs, we look at trend line and program costs, we look at any information we're getting from the field. Otherwise, so it's a lot of different information we build it in. Programs that run through BOCES, we rely on BOCES special education program, what they did think about their program costs, those kind of things. So there's a lot of different data points we look at. The bottom line is right now, like most things are, the costs are significant and the needs are quite frankly are equally significant, and we're trying to balance between, because last thing, just to bring a program in-house, we'd never bring a program in-house because it's cheaper. We bring a program in-house because we can more effectively do it or as effectively do it at a lower price point. So we're not doing it cheap because the cheap turned into other costs that we can't anticipate. On the same note, we would never send a program out unless it's a quality program for the young person too. So the bottom line is always that, what's the best situation for the young people? And unfortunately, these programs are very expensive. As you know, we've had some programs that that people are appealing for expenses for, and they're very expensive programs.
Yeah, I really thought, like Jason's question was, is it because the price for these programs has remained the same and now they're adjusting up to catch up, or?
It's just a combination, it's consistent.
Interest rates, is it, it's not, it's several.
Yeah, exactly.
Forgive me if I'm assuming too much there, but.
No.
Moving on to textbook and library books, again, just a projection based on going through each of the line items and trends. I'm saying 44,000 savings. Regardless, we will maximize our instructional materials aid because we always budget more than what we actually have to maximize materials aid. And we may actually overexpend those lines. It may, it may come in slightly different than this. But that's just our projection at this point in time.
So add a little color to that, Dr. Wilson, trying to make sure I'm using the right term. So we have a instructional material, what you call that? Spreadsheet that over the next 3 to 5 years, we can see what books, what big series are going to have to be renewed, right? So we start with big chunks. And so give you a perfect example of a big chunk. Right now, we just implemented 3 through 5 wit and wisdom. And that purchase was accelerated actually using federal funds. So even beyond, so we maxed out what we're gonna get for reimbursement for state aid, and then we accelerated that purchase with the federal funds because, quite frankly with you, if we didn't, that installation would be spread out over 3 or 4 or 5 years. And we always laughed at, okay, why would we want to have one group of kids with good material, and then they have to wait 3 years by the time that come around, those kids will be in 8th grade. So we have opportunity to accelerate certain things. Like that's a perfect example because it's a hit all 8 elementary schools, 3 through 5, and now we're in the process. And if the board approved tonight, we have someone who's going to be running herd on the K-1-2 piece of it. And so we try to leverage federal funds to expedite those purchases while yet maximizing the state reimbursement, because I know that's something that's always in, but we want to maximize any reimbursement opportunities we can on those kind of things. So again, so just to show how we use funds to address our respective needs.
BOCES costs, again, just projections based on trend. Copier lease savings about 30,000 and IMS savings. IMS is usually good about spending their allocations, so it may be zero by the time we get to the end of the year. But in essence, we're expending the majority of our BOCES aid. Supplies, we expect to expend about 98%. Not really anything in particular that's significant there. Transfers to other funds. When we talked about some capacity that we now have because we've moved some money to federal funds, one of the things that we talked about was paying down our bond anticipation notes at the end of this year. So we have bond anticipation notes that renew every year up to 5 years, and then we have to go to long-term bonding. I believe we have a $17 million ban out there right now that will come due the end of the year. We then decide whether we're going to long-term finance or not, but using some of our savings to reduce the debt service and what we have to finance in future years will only help the long-term capital plan. We know that we've got more debt coming as a result of our renovations of 5 Maxwell. We have additional needs based on our 5-year capital plan that we looked at last time and beyond. So paying down debt now only helps us in the future as we talk about our annual debt needs.
And just to punctuate this before I sit there and further questions. So I started talking about the benefit of this process. This process also, when our auditors and folks, they know we go through this kind of scrutiny throughout the year. And when we have right now the highest possible bond rating that you can get as a school. And a big part of that is that they look at and I shared last week, the comptroller's fiscal strength. And all these are measures that all these spaces look at. What's your process to scrutinize your budget? What's your independent audit saying at the end of the year? What's our internal audit? How do we all these kind of things lend to that bond rating. And so it's like your credit score, right? So you can borrow money cheaper. And so while we are trying to reduce our debt, this doesn't mean we borrow money cheaper because of the fact that we're doing these kind of strategic things, because we're replenishing reserves. All those things signal this is a fiscally healthy organization. And so from a potential debt investor, we give you a better rate because you have all the things in place. And I think it's an important piece to know, right? Because we have these disparate conversations. I shared the comptroller things with you a couple weeks ago. You heard the independent audit came in October. You hear this, all these things lend to things like borrowing money a heck of a lot cheaper. When you're borrowing millions of dollars for capital construction, interest rate percentages is huge when you're paying off over 15, 20 years. Huge difference in terms of the interest amount that you save in those scenarios. So a lot of our effort is to one, first address our needs. Two, to make sure that we're viable as an organization in terms of the things that we're doing, we can continue to do. And three, to keep position us, and I say for prosperity, and it sounds kind of empty, but truly keep position us so we're flexible enough, nimble enough that as things evolve, we can evolve and can continue to grow in as a school district and address the growing needs of our students. So hopefully as a board, you get that flavor from this. All those other documents we linked are, quite frankly, the background documents to these things. So I say that because if there's a particular one that you want us to walk through, we can. But the intent wasn't to walk through all of them. The intent was to give you, the board, that background information that goes with the summary document so you can truly have an appreciation of some of the inner workings without having to live in that world every day.
That's really helpful. I did have one question about the food service program. Now that we're on that slide, does this reflect the providing of meals to Orange and Chattacona that became effective in November? Was it November or December?
I mean, that certainly helps, but I think that we would have been okay. I think we still would have seen some savings anyway. I know this last year, we ended up having to spend down some of the fund balance because they deemed it too high. So we invested in some equipment for our kitchens to comply with SED's requirement that we not keep too much in fund balance there.
Okay, thank you.
So I just had a question on the transfer amount, and I don't really have a question about, the benefits or not benefits of the debt service, but this ties to something Oliver mentioned earlier, which was, and we talked about, it says like the budget's zero sum, right? So if you can do an increase over here, you can transfer more money, it means it came from somewhere else. So I see we've got savings in a bunch of places and then investments in other places. I think what I'm trying to do is make the connection of, what's moving from where, source and destination. So I see a lot of it in here. For example, like we talked about already, the salaries, there was a lot of savings there due to probably a lot of that is federal grants, right? And some of the changes in staff. I think, was it $2 million in interest income, which kudos to the team on that, by the way, that's just free money. But so like right there, 2 million, and then the salaries, I think that basically is this fund. But I guess that would be a question, and I don't know if it's tonight or another night, but just understanding what are the moving pieces, right? A lot of it, if it's just found money, because again, like I think the salary stuff, the federal grant stuff, the interest stuff, that's just free money. So then it's like, what's the best investment strategy? There's this, there's the travel, the transportation system, right? So that's good. But and that makes me feel really good, actually, if that's what it is. But it's hard to tell like exactly where it is. So
at this point, it's we haven't pinpoint exactly what budget code neither. So that's why when you look at the broader categories, if you add up, all the plus and minuses in the different columns, right, we're basically saying with all those plus and minuses, we're going to end up with potentially $4 million. And with that $4 million, we know we can have addressed some of the bond. We could address this thing. And so once we get into, and I'm thinking, Kathy, probably April, May, when all this start coming in, that's when we start looking at actual budget transfers themselves, right? And so, I mean, again, if particularly those three strategic areas, we can revisit those with the board once we get to say, because quite frankly, it's a projection right now.
Yeah,
I hope that it stays positive, right? But things could change. And if they change dramatically, clearly we'll be having a conversation. And so at some point, we could certainly revisit to say, okay, as we look at year end, because at the year end, the board is gonna have conversation about, we have recommendations for contribution to reserves, but those things aren't real until we get to an audited budget process, right? So our projection is saying that we have the potential to do these things. And so how do we do it? The one that we probably gonna act on, more so than not, is the Transfinder one, because we have the capacity within the budget now. And two, that's a long lead process, that we have to live in the world with two different systems. And so their folks, they need time for that, right? Because the last thing we want to do is have rooms all over the place, right? So those are kind of long lead things that we have to do. The bond piece is when we clean up the year. And we get to the point of like, do we refinance this bond for $17 million or $14 million? So those are conversations we have later on down the road. So that's where, so yeah, I truly understand your question, and is this not designed to be able to say A plus B, 1, 2, 3 gonna give us this? It's gonna be, we know that within the larger schema, and the only code that we cannot transfer into is equipment. Everything else give us some flexibility, right? So it's the savings on expenditure on one side, it's the added revenue on the other side. So if we save $3 million that we didn't spend, so allocations available, and we get $2 additional million in revenue, that if we spend now up to the 3, we know that we're still able to contribute to fund balance because the net's still there because of the addition. And that's the reason why Kathy sorted out. I mean, our trend line is about 97% of our budget. To spend 99% of the budget, you pretty much cut it pretty darn close. And at some point, it's gonna come back and bite you, right? And so we create a budget that we have enough flexibility for the uncertain things, health insurance, utilities. But for certain things, we try to pinpoint as close as we can. As you see where you have some 99.9, and then you have some 97% expenditures, because there's certain things we simply cannot predict right down to the penny.
Thank you.
No, appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Kat. So I appreciate it. So do you want to walk to 3 or 4 forecasts?
The only thing I would just say, and I don't think we need to get into the details, but I would say these represent very conservative estimates and planning. This is not an indication of what our tax levy is going to be or the growth rates. This is, right, like doomsday scenario. I shouldn't say doomsday, right? But it's conservative planning to get us ready.
They work themselves back.
Yeah.
They give you the worst case scenario, quite
Yes,
frankly,
I
and
just,
they work themselves back.
no spoilers
Right.
in these documents of what our budget is for
No.
next
And
year.
you know,
This
I'll always
is-
say, like,
yes.
as months go on, this is as high as we may be, but we think we're going to get here. So that's, right? That's our conversations as we go.
Yeah. And even just a simple thing, even we hold the foundation aid revenue flat for the 2 years out. Because, we can sit here and make the assumption that the state probably gonna settle on some kind of adjustment, but for this exercise, we're not even trying to do that, right? It's a rough forecast with some intelligent assumptions built in. That's probably the best way to describe it. And it just gives us a flavor, right? That we massage it. We massage the budget as a part of the process. This is just like quite frankly, it's a mathematical process that we just go through. Say, let's just sort this out and see what does it look like. Okay, if it looks woof, then we gotta say, okay, what we gotta start doing now. But right now, none of us are trying to woof kind of comments at this point. So no, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks.
It's good. Thank you. So,
Kathy, well, you still standing there? Claims report. I don't know if there's any questions.
or do you want, I just have a quick question.
Do you want to stop and do the tenure?
No, we could do the claims, the audit pieces, but do you want to move the tenure piece to the staffing
Or if you
recommendation?
want to do it now, okay. That's on you.
Do it now, like it was.
Yes, Jason's going to leave it in there.
So
Do you mind if we do that first? Okay, great.
We made them suffer through the budget. We could at least give them tenure.
Hey,
That's part of
You know,
tenure.
can I also say one thing too, just a comment?
Sure.
We're getting into a presidential election, right? So we don't know once that happens, that kind of landscape too. So you're thinking, right, you're also taking that into, because things could definitely go in another direction, right, in another year. So you take that into
yes, we
consideration.
do. And great point, Mrs. Stevenson, that as much as possible, we try to put ourselves in a position that we can control our destiny. And it sounds like an arrogant statement, but it's a very real statement, right? And our destiny is part of, you know, making sure that our taxpayers, that we're not unduly taxing our taxpayers. Our destiny is making sure people understand the return on their investments, right? So we do a lot of different things. Our destiny is know that when people show up at our schools, they can say, yeah, it's a worthwhile investment. So all those kind of things. So when we have the political winds all over the place, we saw it during COVID. The winds all over the place, but we stayed pretty stable. And when we got back to the other side, we were ready to soar while some places struggled. And it's not by accident, it's by very deliberate. We have to stay the course, folks. Both hands on the steering wheel and keep looking ahead until we get through this. And there's the other side, right? And so great point. And we watch the political TV all the time to say, what are they talking about at the different levels and how they may impact us and how can we predict that implication for a year out or 2 years out and try to put that in our hopper now so that we have some flexibility to make those adjustments if things change. And again, back to trying to control our destiny. So appreciate that. You're a great person.
Okay, good evening. So we have 2 tenure recommendations tonight. First one is Jackie Spinelli, special education teacher, and I don't believe Jackie is here tonight with us. But she is currently at Acadia and she's recommended by Jonathan Burns and Lisa Young. And then we have McKenna Robinson, who's right there with us
My
tonight.
younger sister.
She is an art teacher with us. She's recommended by Frank Roselli and Malik Jones, and currently working with students at Paragon and Chisago.
Okay.
So we want to wait to vote on the.
No, we'll do it now.
You wanna do the
We'll do
vote
it now.
now?
We'll invite her
Okay.
up after the vote. Yes. So can I have a motion to accept tonight's tenure recommendation?
You had 2 hands go.
Oh, I have 2 hands up. Oh, Petra is the first. I need a second.
Second.
Jason, any comments or questions? Or any comments?
Congratulations.
So happy.
Congratulations.
Guys, congratulations.
Yes.
So hands up, Michelle.
Wait,
All in favor?
All in favor? It is 17. Now, yes.
Congratulations, Kate. Good to see you. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, welcome aboard.
So happy for you, sweetheart.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
She just got here too. I feel like you just got here. Oh my God. I know.
Teaching art,
Vanessa,
graduate online.
Jason's leaving.
Yes.
Thank you.
Everybody go
Thank you.
invite Jason.
Bye.
All right. Let's see.
Congratulations again, and thank you for coming tonight. Did you go? There she is, yes.
You're good now.
Okay, so now we will move to the
Thanks, Ari.
Blade Soccer.
Take questions with Kathy.
Any questions?
We also covered this a little bit in our minutes, our audit committee minutes,
And by the way, we added the, right, Vanessa?
Right, added it to the
We
agenda.
added the minutes, approval of minutes down
Right.
here.
I did have one question about the minutes, and that was, it's too bad Jason, well, Petra was at that meeting. And that is specific to what's gonna be audited this year. There were 2 things that were listed, so it wasn't clear. It was stack and transportation. I know stack is stacking of homeless students for state aid. And then
it's special
transportation.
education.
So it's special, so,
Yes.
oh, right, so what, so it listed the 2, it didn't say which one. So
So
it's gonna be included, both are gonna be audited, or included for the audit. Okay, fantastic, thank you.
Thanks,
And now Mr. Nardelli.
Mr. Nardelli.
Snuck up on you, didn't it?
So, as Ray's come forward, what percentage full screen, Ray? So, well, I just wanted to highlight something because I'm sure Ray would do it as well. We had the board, obviously, we had some executive session conversation on some of the details of it. And even today, Ray and David and Kathy and Cecily and I met to talk about IMS budget. And I just want to again emphasize the seriousness, if you will, that Ray and David's role as a cybersecurity chief, if you will, as a system, trying to make sure that we're being smart about it. And I think that's an important piece because it's one of those things that can't say we prevented everything, but we want to be smart about it, right? And so hopefully that comes out in the presentation. And kudos to a lot of folks that's literally working behind the scenes to make sure our systems are one, accessible and safe at the same time. You want me to
Thank you. Yeah, so so the cybersecurity incident response plan, we've been focused on cybersecurity for as long as I've been here, and before, obviously before I was here, my predecessor. But this incident response plan was really, it put into place with the help of David, Mark Simpkins, who's back there, Becky Carmen, and Becky's assistant Julie. We worked over the past year kind of refining and drafting and refining and drafting again until we finally got it to a place where we feel like it's ready to put forward for approval. We can go to the next slide. So the whole purpose of this incident response plan is to define a structure so that if and when a cyber incident does occur, we have a bit of like a playbook, something to look at, a structure so that we can react consistently to an incident without, taking the time to think it through ahead of time, put it in a written format so that we have all the correct players in place. So the second bullet there talks about a shared responsibility. Incident or cybersecurity, a lot of times is thought about as an IT problem or an IT challenge, when in fact, since we all use technology every day, it really is a shared responsibility across the entire administration. So in this cybersecurity incident response plan, we've defined roles. We've defined folks like our communications director. We have HRs involved, operations are involved. Folks from my team to do some analysis are involved. But basically, it's a large number of people that are involved in responding to an incident like this. And then the last bullet there just talks about using the incident command system. Similar to our physical safety, where we have an incident commander, a liaison, a scribe, director of operations, director of safety. Those are all identified in this incident response plan also. So next slide. So by putting this plan on paper, we're now able to share it with the folks who need to know about this. So back in December, we ran a tabletop exercise in our IT department with the help of a security vendor. And that was a really great exercise for just the IT department to kind of get our feet wet with this incident response plan. And then in January, we did another tabletop exercise. It was about 2.5 hours with the incident response team itself. So Dr. Robinson, Dr. Wilson Turner, Director of HR, Jenny, and others were in the room. There's like 19 of us going through a scenario where if one of our major systems that we depend on a daily basis were to go down, what if we couldn't access it for multiple days? What if it's a payroll time and we don't have a system to be able to pay our folks? So it was really kind of a great exercise in just kind of thinking through. And a plan like this helps us to kind of solidify so that we can do training like that. And then, of course, we'll evaluate this on a yearly basis. And when it comes to tabletop exercises, I hope that we can do at least one with the whole administrative team, and then one with our multiple with our technology team. Next slide. This plan follows the NIST framework. NIST is the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. We use the NIST framework for a lot when it comes to cybersecurity. These are standards that many institutions, educational and non-educational institutions, follow when it comes to basically crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's throughout the whole process. So it's a multiple step process. I'm going to just run through a couple things really quickly. You can go to the next one. So detecting an incident, this comes in all kinds of different ways. And I think last year David talked to the board in executive session about our whole NIST framework and process, and a lot of the same things kind of are now being played out in this incident response plan. But how do we find out about an incident? Well, an end user could call us or contact the help desk. We have systems in place that proactively monitor end systems that will send us emails to alert us when there's an issue. We were talking about this today. I mean, it's not uncommon. We probably get 2 or 3 of these per week when our end users inadvertently download something to their computer that looks suspicious, and our endpoint protection system flags it, sends us an email. We reach out to that person. Generally, I mean, we're kind of following the incident response plan at that moment because we're alerted. Then we reach out, we do our analysis, we try to determine what kind of impact it has, and generally it's just one user. We'll re-image their computer, and then things, we just go on. But so in the next step, basically, of once you find out about an incident, is trying to do that assessment to determine if we need to get other team members involved. We have had a couple of incidents already over the course of the 2 years I've been here, where I will call pick up the phone, call Becky Carmen, who then talks to Dr. Robinson, and we try to determine our next steps. You can go to the next slide. This is just again, as a part of this plan, it even defines, what type of incident requires more attention or more sensitivity than others. So we're looking at the impact of that incident, and then we're looking at the scope. How many users, how many systems are actually impacted? How sensitive, if there is data that's compromised, how sensitive is that data? So all this goes into basically a framework, again, to help us so that if in that moment we have something to kind of like take a breath, look at this document, and try to make sure that we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. Next one. The analysis comes where, we're looking at everything at our disposal to determine like how far of an incident this really is. We talked about this today in our budget meeting. There's some log aggregation tools that are available that we're interested in purchasing to help us bolster our cybersecurity abilities. But the ability to kind of pull logs from many different systems into one place that can then, with some artificial intelligence built in to help us kind of navigate and connect the dots to determine how an incident occurred and how far-reaching it is. So then there's the containment and eradication piece, and then it just continues. You recover back to normal operations, and then, of course, at the very end, you take a step back, and you try to, get the team together, get the incident response team together, and say, what worked, what did we do well, what can we improve upon, and then the plan would be that's iterated. The plan would be updated depending on how things go. I think the last slide. Throughout this plan, there's a lot of phone numbers and addresses and folks' names that need to be contacted in the case of an incident. So, we have our legal team that we may have to get in touch with. We have our insurance company that we may need to get in touch with. We have a good relationship with NARIX. They're a cybersecurity team, so it wouldn't be unusual for us to call them. We've gotten Department of Homeland Security involved in the past when we've had some questions about certain incidents. So all that information is in this plan to help us so that we can react in a very consistent manner. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Questions from the board?
I just have one question. At the beginning of the year, we approve a technology plan that's submitted to SED. Is this part of that plan?
No.
This is not part of it.
We're gonna have the board approve it though, just to formalize it. But we don't have to submit it to SED in the same way.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, the plan at the beginning of the year is really an instructional plan,
Oh,
instructional technology plan.
okay.
Yeah.
Very important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Invite Mrs. Carmen up for our policy review, first reading.
Good evening. So tonight we're presenting a lot of policies for first reading, and one of the things that I really want to point out, actually two key things, is number one, a brand new policy as it relates to workplace violence and prevention. And one of the things that I want to point out with that one is that some key dates that as a system we need to make sure that we're adhering to, and we are right on target. We're presenting first reading tonight, which is great and probably ahead of the game compared to a lot of districts out there, because we were kind of operating behind the 8 ball with waiting for some direction about what components need to be part of policy and as part of the program as a whole. So technically it's supposed to be in effect as of February 3rd. We're bringing it to first reading and we're in great shape to then go to second reading for next month. And so policy and regulation would be, or policy would be approved. And then we are in the process of formulating, it's really a 4-step phase implementation process where you have the policy, then you have to look at the workplace risk evaluation and determination must be completed within 60 days. So we are in the process of collecting some of that information and looking at the workplace risk evaluation, as well as also formulating a committee, a workplace violence prevention program committee, which would consist of key stakeholders, which is in alignment with the policy, which is also members of the bargaining units. We've already met once to talk about some of the work that we need to do as a group, and we will be following up probably right after break to meet again to really talk about the development of the workplace violence prevention program, which must be completed within 75 days of the law going into effect. So again, all these pieces tie together and we're working on them all together. And then obviously we need to be in full compliance A through Z by May 3rd. So we are on our way, and we have many pieces outlined already and the work of the group that is already happening. The second piece that I do want to mention in regard to specific policy tonight too is the physical timeout and physical restraint policy and regulation, which went through a lot of updates to ensure that we are in alignment and in accordance with the new regulations that came out. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Are there any further questions regarding the items being presented tonight?
Any comments or questions?
I actually missed that meeting. So
It was the best meeting.
I was going to say.
was it
I
really
missed that
short
meeting
without?
too.
No, no.
But
The
this
policy
is
meeting.
really big.
It was great, the
Yeah.
policy meeting. We had a great conversation at the policy meeting, and no, it wasn't short. Yeah, it was a very valuable conversation regarding the policies we're presenting tonight.
But it's first reading, so there's still an opportunity to.
I did actually read everything, but my understanding is this law has been in effect for workplaces for a while, but it's just now being
Schools.
applied to schools.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Governor
A
Hochul.
variation of it, yes, good.
So it's been around, so there's probably, you could look to other institutions to see what they've done, right? They're not just creating.
We have a lot of information.
Exactly, yeah, that's great.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to the consent items. Okay.
Oh, before Becky, Becky,
I'm sorry, I forgot.
so these aren't card
Oh, right.
decals,
Yes, please.
and they're not for you to take home. They're just to show you, so don't plan to put this on your car, it's not a
Put it
card
on your
decal.
car. These are decals that we had made for the district. Those of you that are on the SAFE committee may be familiar with those. But as part of our branding, safety branding, and really trying to get messages out there about see something, say something, our committee created these claims that are gonna go on every door across the district. And some great suggestions came from our committee members tonight. Different committee members spoke about some of their experiences and some of the additional things that maybe we could think about to even expand this a little bit more. So there was really some great conversation tonight. So we are going to put those around, and the QR code works. It brings you to some new safety information, and also ties in with the safety email that we recently sent out to all families as well as to all of our Shen staff here. So do not put them on your car.
So give them back to Becky before you
Give them
leave.
back, right?
Yes.
Or just leave
They're
them on the
mine.
table.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to the consent items. For item A,
Thank you.
can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the period ending December 31st, 2023? First is Gusta, second is Deanna. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's 6 in favor. Thank you. For the minutes, I'm going to do them separately because different people were in attendance, but of course, if you want to vote, you can, or if you want to abstain, you can. So for the first, for item 1 under minutes, can I have a motion to approve the January 9th, 2024 minutes?
That's you.
Well, oh, let me say,
I'm going to
who wasn't
abstain.
here? I have
I
Deanna,
wasn't.
Petra, and Stacy were not here.
I was
So
here.
Tom has
They can still
motioned.
vote, but yeah.
Yeah, you can vote, or you can abstain. So I'll just ask for yeses or noes and abstentions. So first is Tom.
Okay, we need one more person.
Yeah. Well, we have to have 4.
Right,
That's true. We have to have 4, else
yeah,
we
you have
can't.
the quorum.
So somebody who's abstaining can abstain.
You don't have to abstain.
Count you back
Paul.
in.
Actually, no. I'm only kidding. What could happen is that if the 3 who were not here do not want to vote, then we'll just move it to the next meeting. That's all.
We can vote. It's all good. I've read them, they
Okay.
look fine.
So I have Tom as the first motion, and I have Gusta as the second motion. First, all in favor? It looks like everyone's gonna vote. So it is 6 in favor. Thank you. Okay, so for the next one up, it's for number 2. Can I have a motion to approve the January 23rd, 2024 minutes? And for this one, I only have that Gusta wasn't here, but again, you can vote. So first is Petra, second is Stacy. All in favor?
Do you need me?
No, actually, no. Okay, so it's 5 in favor and an abstention, Gusta? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, so that's it for consent. For the consent items, we're going to move on to action items. Forgive me, all of a sudden my throat is really dry. The first item up is for the acceptance of the, I want to make sure I'm reading the, because I moved things around. The first item up is acceptance of the internal audit report and the risk assessment. I want to combine the 2 items under one. So can I have a motion to approve the payroll audit and the risk assessment? First is Deanna, second is Tom. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is 6 in favor. And I think we have, the next item up is, we have the minutes are further down. Okay, we'll do those later. The item number 2, can I have a motion to approve the 2 bids for custodial supplies and transportation bus parts? First is Gusta, second is Deanna. Any comments? All in favor? It is 6 in favor. Thank you. The next item up is for number 3. Can I have a motion to approve the scholarships and local grant donations with appreciation? First is Petra, second is Stacy. Any comments? All in favor? It is 6 in favor. Number 4, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the audit committee meeting on January 29th, 2024? First is Tom, second is Deanna. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It is 6 in favor. Thank you. Number 5. Can I have a motion to approve the 2024-25 school calendar?
What we saw was
First is Tom.
it.
Yeah, Stacy keeps you.
Oh, sorry, second
follow.
is Stacy. Questions and comments? There was a small change.
Just the August, it's the August date we changed, everything else is the same.
Okay.
Graduation was
Graduation's
late,
late.
Friday 27th.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
I know. Sorry. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Sorry.
All in favor? Gusta?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's six in favor, the motion is approved, thank you. Item 6. We just heard about the cybersecurity plan for Mr. Nardelli. Can I have a motion to approve the cybersecurity plan? First is Tom, second is Stacy. Any comments? We'll get you next time.
Yeah, exactly.
All in favor? It is 6 in
You
favor.
know, it all
Motion
depends
passes.
on which way you're looking, just so
I
you know
know,
that.
I know.
You
Yes,
gotta,
I do know, yes.
it's no offense to anybody, it's just how you're looking that way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It certainly wasn't intentional. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to students. Is Mrs. Mylott here?
No, we have Anna Cortez.
Oh, Anna.
So I'm not Michelle Mylan, I'm here on her behalf. I'm Anthony Jordan, I'm the academic administrator at the high school for special ed. And I'm here to present to the board the recommendations from the committee on preschool and special education.
Does anybody have questions for the recommendation?
Go ahead, ask me a placement question.
I dare you.
All right, so can I have a motion to accept the special education placements? First is Gusta, second is Stacy.
I know, they're fighting over there.
Okay, all in favor?
We're waiting for your next
All
one.
in 6 in favor.
Look that way.
Thanks, Anna.
Naomi, face that way for a second.
I'm not doing that.
Mrs. Scalia up for the staffing recommendations.
Stacy, you got this.
So you have the staffing recommendations in front of you. Would like to point out our retirements with appreciation. We have Frances Morey with 5 years and Rose Morgan with 23 years of service to the district. Would also like to point out our appointment of our new academic administrator for ELA and social studies, Judith Gawinski, who is here with us tonight. So we're very happy to be making this.
Do we have any other person present that's being appointed tonight?
I think that was the only thing.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a test question.
Yes. Stop throwing me off here.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
you're welcome.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the staffing recommendations? First is Stacy. Second is Petra. Comments or questions?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome.
But hang on, I also want to, again, thank our retirees, especially the one bus monitor for 5 years, that would be Frances, and Rose for 23 years. Very important positions, teachers aid in special education. These are really big roles. I wish them all the best as they move on. And with that, all in favor? It is unanimous. The motion's passed. If you could please come up so we can all welcome you. Judith? Congratulations and welcome.
We're in the picture.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you. And with that, invite Mrs. Carmen back up for second reading.
So we have,
Yes.
again, another good amount of policies being presented for second reading that were presented for first reading last week. Are there any follow-up questions?
Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the policies for second reading? First is Gusta, second is Deanna. Did you raise your hand?
I didn't. No,
She did.
She's done.
All in favor? It is 6 in favor. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, Mrs. Carmen, or Petra and I will, for tomorrow's policy reading. So with that, we're going to move into the second public comment period. Is there anyone Approaching, no, and so I'll close the second public comment period, and I'll move in for the good of the order. And this is an opportunity for board members to discuss salient issues or to give a shout out to something. And put it out there. Is there anything anyone would like to share? Hearing none, I will, I want to wish everyone an enjoyable winter break, and I do hope that everyone can get away, and I'll see you. I'm not sure who is actually going to be going to the legislative meetings on the 26th, or on the Monday, the day before our next board meeting, but I think, so I will, that will be when we're back together. We're gonna be jumping right in to work as we come out of the break, but that'll be on Monday, the 26th, and then our next board meeting is the 27th. So with that, of course, the next item up is just informational, and then now we're at adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Stacy's first. Gus a second. All in favor? It is 6 in favor. The meeting is